Welcome to CharityVillage Connects. Nonprofits in Canada are notoriously slow when it comes to investing in new technology. Will they be left behind when it comes to the new AI tools that are poised to revolutionize our world? In this episode of CharityVillage Connects, we take a hard look at what AI has to offer nonprofit organizations, as well as its potential drawbacks. Is there a way to responsibly harness the power of AI for social good? To discuss these important issues, please welcome Dan Kershaw, the Executive Director of the Furniture Bank, a charity social enterprise that seeks to end furniture poverty across Canada. Thanks to Dan's efforts and his dedicated team, nearly 1 million pieces of furniture have been collected and given a second life with over 125,000 families. With over 17 years of digital experience, he's also spearheading the development of an online platform for supporting other furniture banking charities across the country. Dan persistently explores new uses of technology and now AI, as well as business partnerships and impact measurements to tackle furniture poverty in Canada. Welcome back to the podcast, Dan.
Thank you, Mary. Glad to be back.
Well, Furniture Bank has been recently seen a fair bit of news coverage based on your organization's use of AI technology. I wonder if you can give us some background on how you've put AI to use in your fundraising campaigns and mission work.
Yeah, and this was most charities, we all have our annual campaigns at the end of the year, trying to get the attention of people who are aligned with our missions. Furniture Bank's going into its 25th year of operation this year, and a challenge that we've always had is the nature of the poverty work that we do is hidden behind doors. We're dealing with people who have successfully found housing, which we know is impossible. And they find themselves without any furnishings. And in the 25 years, looking at the archives that we have, we've only ever had 2 families invite photographers in to photograph or video the destitution, the form of hidden homelessness. So how is, for us as a small charity, often joke, how many funders would happily provide funding for marketing and awareness campaigns, and that just doesn't happen. So when we started looking at sort of the traditional way of how do you raise awareness of this issue, traditionally it would be a lot of expense, a lot of complexity, and it would just be something we would never do, trying to visualize what this type of poverty looks like in a way that isn't harmful to the families that we support. I've been following AI all my professional career. It's been around for a long time. It's popular now. And seeing some of the, that our history is we have all of the stories from the families that we've supported. And in their own words, they've described what is furniture poverty. What does it look like to put your child to bed on a bed of clothes? What does it look like to eat with a milk crate as your table? These are all, we have hundreds of stories like this. And when I saw what was going on with generative art, the idea struck me, which was, well, why don't we take the words and the stories of the families that were affected by this form of poverty and let AI visualize what that looks like? And so began the campaign with, the reality is real, but the picture isn't, was really our go-to, which was to give pictures of what it looks like. And so we got to work experimenting with that and trying to engage really as a follow-up campaign to the donors of furniture over the course of the year. Wasn't really intended as a large fundraiser so much as an awareness exercise, and it worked quite well.
And so could you describe what a viewer would see with these AI-generated images? Is it artistic, or is it meant to look realistic, or for listening?
Yeah, so AI art today, so we started experimenting in September, and the engine at that time and the engine that if your listeners went and played with it now are night and day. And I think it's really important, the idea of the prompting is AI is trying to respond to you. You speak to it in a natural language. So in our case, we were trying to create a photographic representation of what that reality looked like. But AI is such that if I wanted an illustration or a watercolor or tech fabric art, you can tell AI what to do and it will generate those things. So we were creating photographic versions. So the campaign itself, the images, that was the hardest thing with AI has been trained on what it is collectively seen in the world. So it actually had a hard time imagining furniture poverty because there aren't a lot of photos of people living in destitution behind their own closed doors. Lots of pictures of empty rooms, lots of people in other forms of poverty. But that was actually the hardest challenge, is coaching AI to take the stories of the clients that we work with and turn it into the reality that is described in those words.
So interesting. So it's not, is it responding directly to the words that were spoken to you, the storytelling from the clients that you helped?
Yeah, that's what we've done, and we explained, because there's about 250 furniture banks. I'll call it cousins like us all across North America, and all of them resonated and have asked for explanations. So we actually created a workflow to explain how to do it, and we would literally, you take the story, the actual words that are used, and with some basic prompting, which any one of us, if we had more time, Mary, I'd show you how to do it. It's not that hard. And it will generate versions, and you teach it and coach it until you get to a point. And we're now at a point, just moving forward, that we're now trying to, in our regular charity operations day to day, trying to build a process where we can capture at the time the families are coming in to build their homes, selecting furniture, if they want to tell us what it was like, they may, and if they choose to, they can do so in an anonymous way that is not impinging on their personal space, but allowing them to have the ability to support this movement. With a number of families, they know this is quite transformational, moving from empty housing into a furnished home. And a lot of families they're quite happy to help this way, in that it's not a cost, it's a story. And we can take that story and turn it into both written and visual material to help awareness about this issue, because it is furniture waste. It is the largest waste stream, the least recycled waste stream. So we fill up landfills at rates that are unimaginable, and yet we have millions of people in furniture poverty. And this is an exercise of really connecting the dots and redistributing and rescuing this furniture and getting to the families who need it.
I just love this because what you're describing is a way of showing the impact of the gift, the actual putting the work that you do, and almost a before and after kind of
Yes,
experience.
and that's what we're going to try and do this year, is really make that an interactive experience this year for the annual campaign.
So that's really fascinating. How did you go about identifying where AI might be able to help you in your work? You've talked about this sort of history of really behind having impact being behind closed doors, and how difficult it was to actually tell the story visually and show the full impact.
Yeah.
Is that your starting point?
A lot of it is like, we have a someday maybe board, a what if board. Every organization has imagine if, what if we could, and if we remove the constraints of money or skills or all of the things that hold us all back, we all have that list. And talking about, it's not that we stumbled across, that we didn't have any imagery or couldn't visually represent it in a world where nobody has attention span. So we've always been curious around technology. We're Salesforcey, and we're sort of nerdy. My generation, being a nerd is a badge of honor. We've always had technology to help amplify the work that we do. And we were looking, in my case, I'm always scanning for what is new. I was there when the internet was, and I think there's a lot of parallels to 20 plus years ago when this thing called the internet came around, there was an uproar. There was concern. All of the questions that are being asked today about AI in our sector were asked, almost the exact questions were asked around the internet. So a lot of it was because it is so easy to access, because it's effective if you have access to a computer. So I'm going to speak to AI access and AI tools within any social purpose organization in Canada. The tools are free. You could use them right now. Children are using it right now. It's a matter of seeing and identifying what is the pain point that we are trying to solve. In the case of the campaign, it was how do we, at scale, really showcase the stories of the families that we support. And that has really been a continuous surprise for us, is that the places it can and will make Furniture Bank a more effective and impactful organization are many. There isn't a corner of the organization that, with time and resources and skills, AI can't transform it to be a much broader and more impactful organization. So for us, for me, it was seeing, I guess personally, it was watching staff that I've worked with in some cases for 10 years plus, seeing them get new superpowers. And I'm cute about it, but the AI isn't new. It's machine learning like we've had for decades before. It's just faster and smarter and can be interacted with regular spoken language. You don't need to be a programmer. I'm not a programmer, but I can do things that 20 years ago would say, oh, you must be a programmer to do that. And I watch people in their roles in donors or client services or somebody who's writing policy manuals start to experiment and to see how these added tools can help amplify their work, to speed up their work, to take away some of the not fun parts of a task, summarizing, editing, consolidating, and seeing people take it not because the ED said to do something, but they could see an opportunity to amplify the work that they do so that they're creating more decent work within their organization and trying to take away the parts of every job that can be expedited. And there are concerns and risks with that. And I know we'll get into it, why we have an AI manifesto. But we're at a point where it wasn't a fundraising-led exercise at this point. We're now into program operations, looking at how do we take this mix of tools, because it is just that. They're tools. What you choose to do with the tool very much determines whether it has utility or benefit or harm. So we're going slow. Like the internet 20 years ago, nobody knew what it was going to become. But it's delightful to see individuals, not everybody, because like everybody, there's always the first person and there's always the second and the 10th. And there's always the last person who takes on a new tool. But a lot of it is creating the space to say, let's learn, let's share, let's experiment. And we're doing little experiments to see, does this help? Does it make it better? Because it is so accessible now. And I think I can't emphasize that enough. Anybody can pick it up and start to use it today. And my fear for the sector is the conversations around digitization and some of those bigger technology conversations. Everybody rushes to the reasons why they can't leverage AI for all of those reasons. And I don't think that's the case right now. I think we have to do it, because if you actually spend time watching what is being done in outside of our sector, it's moving faster than the internet moved. Over 2,000 companies have launched AI companies. Businesses are moving, and the rest of the world is changing around us. I don't know what AI will look like by Christmas, even in the tiny little narrow area that we've been really spending time with.
Well, you mentioned in the process of using this AI that you had to coach the app or the software. I mean, it is like any other software in some respects. It's about the quality of what is inputted will impact what you
Absolutely.
get out of it. So, can you describe any of the challenges that people should be aware of when they start using it? I mean, I guess
Yeah.
what you've just
It,
described.
yeah. So most people, when we start talking about AI, a lot of people run to the Chat GPT of the world, and there are dozens of different tools like it. Um, and you have to train it. And when I say train, it's just, at the beginning, there is essentially copy pasting in, well, what is Furniture Bank? What do we are? For us, it's, what do we stand for? What are our missions? What is the data? To the point where we literally had a copy paste object that was represented what we knew we were. And before we did anything, we said, okay, chat, this is what we are. And chat would say, ready. At which point then we would have the discussion of what we're doing. An example, just a recent example, our social enterprise sales team, we just passed a threshold of 500 five-star reviews on Google and Facebook. Yay.
Congratulations.
But if I said, Mary, please go analyze it and come back to me with what did we learn from all of those 500 five-star reviews, you wouldn't do it. But with AI, we can give the data and we can speak to it in English to say, here is reviews, here is who we are, here's how we operate. Could you please help us and coach us? What are the common trends? If we were to write a blog post that summarizes what we've done. So we fed it, we anonymized all of the the reviewer names. That's one aspect of the risk of AI that people will talk about is privacy. And it gave us back a really solid analysis. It even gave us, from the data set, here are reviews that refer to that. So for me, it's a choice. It's the traditional way of take 500 reviews, analyze, sort, filter, and then handcraft a summary, or let AI do the rough work. AI doesn't replace people. AI, like a calculator, you can do long division. That's fine. Or you can use a calculator. And we don't judge people if they break out a pen and paper to do long division, or they pick up a calculator to do the same work. The person, the human doing the entering of the information, they're the one accountable for what gets published. And I think that's an important thing. AI is not replacing, and I think that's where the fear and the risk really escalates to a point where wouldn't be sustainable within our sector, is just letting it run and make decisions for us. And I think it's a big red line for us. But that review piece we did in an afternoon, from take the raw data into come up with an analysis for a blog post. And I'm happy to share it with you after to see what can come from it.
Yeah, I would love to do that and include it in our show notes as well. There's been a lot of discussion, and you've mentioned it already or alluded to it, about the ethical aspects of AI use. And I guess those would be particularly important in the context of nonprofits or charities using them. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like what your concerns were, what are your overall sort of views on the risks?
Yeah, there's a lot of material out there talking about ethics and AI, but we have to zero in on how you are intending on using the AI to really zero in on the ethical pieces that are relevant, or you can get very drowned in the very important conversation. Some of the big pieces that everybody needs to be aware of, and I'm sure everybody will bring it up, is unknown capabilities. These AI engines, you can even ask, some of the founders, they don't necessarily understand how these engines do the magic that they do. So they can create unexpected outputs. And that's one of the really big tenets is just because AI says do something, you have to have the checks and balances people to make sure that the results that are coming out work. When we're talking about generative tools like something to help uh, generative writing, generative video, generative images, it's very easy to see and read and reviewed is what I got back appropriate. Um, the underlying models themselves, and this is something that I hope our sector gets very active in, is these models are built on training data. And that is, they've gone and grabbed everything that's out there and they're training it based on what society has generated over the past. As we know, there's a lot of things in the past that were omitted. But all of these AI engines are very active in trying to get better trained. So right now, some of these models can have biases. And that's part of the reason you go into training. Once you train when you use AI, if you train it a certain way, it will use the rules that you give it as a basis for the response. So, but you have to be mindful of bias. Um, in the time I've been using it, I don't see bias. In part because the nature of the types of work that we're doing at Furniture Bank, I'm not naturally coming across it, and we're spending the time training it, which is akin to copy pasting what is Furniture Bank before it proceeds. You have to be aware of data leakage. All of these models uh, live off of data. So you want to make sure you're not providing personal information that you would consider a breach of your privacy policy. So when any stories that we put in are anonymized, it's client A, customer B. The AI model doesn't need to know who said something. The transparency is an issue because you don't really know what is driving what. Some of the bigger tools that you use, you may want to see the transparency on how things are working. Some of my favorite tools, while it may give a generative result, it's also footnoting my thinking here came from this location, and you can go and verify that. So there are none of these things are unknown to the AI industry, and they are moving at a speed I've never seen to continually to improve these things. And the one that a lot of people talk about is the idea of workforce displacement. If you follow the business press, there is a large segment of the business world which will use AI to displace workers. That is a risk, but like any tool, how an organization decides to use it will determine what the outcome is. At Furniture Bank, I'm looking to make sure that everybody's jobs are more empowering, are more interesting, are less dreary, can have a bigger impact on the community, spend less time doing things that don't need to take that much time anymore. I'm going back to the do long division or use a calculator. I prefer calculators for myself and my team. But and I guess leading into why a manifesto, this is happening right now. This isn't, I think it's really important for all your listeners. At this very moment, almost every digital tool that every SPO uses, Microsoft, Salesforce, Canva, HubSpot, Razor's Edge, on and on and on, they all have or are about to have AI, embedded AI capabilities. So this is not a topic you get to skip or avoid or put to the side. This is changing underneath every organization's feet right this moment. And your client service, your program manager, if somebody in your organization is interacting with AI. But if the danger in AI comes when, as a group, you aren't working together, understanding how those models work. And that's so it is certainly, you can manage these ethical concerns in part when you start to learn what they are, and in part when you start to learn how AI works.
So you mentioned, you were certainly, I guess, giving a preview of where I was going with this. Um, I have heard that you may well be the first nonprofit in Canada to create what's called a responsible AI manifesto. I wonder if you could explain what that is and why you felt it was important to create that.
So I'm surprised we're the first. I didn't think we would be in Canada. This is, if you go look wide and far, the US, lots of organizations have them. In the UK, lots of them have them, to the point where in the UK, there's actually nonprofit organizations that are standards based. Um, why a manifesto? I like manifestos because nobody likes policies. How many people have read their privacy policy? No. A manifesto is also the culture and the why. Why are we using AI? So it's blending the two, and we're using it really as a touchstone, because when you really start playing with AI, trying out the tools, seeing the capabilities, you start discovering opportunities as you're exploring opportunities. Um, so what we wanted to do is take given the pace at which we're seeing the tools that we currently use embed AI, we felt it was important to put a stake in the ground that fit who we were as Furniture Bank, how we were operating, putting our clients and our customers first to make sure that when the question was there, how are you using it? It's clear. Doesn't mean it's not going to change. This is always going to be evolving. But we also use it internally, that when we come up with something, everybody can look at it and like squint at, here's an idea. How does it match up with our manifesto? What extra step might we need to do? And things like that. But it's, we have, we didn't invent it out of the ether. We borrowed all the good ideas from the UK and the United States. There are no laws. There is no legal framework or construct here in Canada. At some point, there will be. But for now, we're more or less following what the rest of the world is recommending. There's lots of great organizations in the US that are very focused on AI. And it's not, you don't need to think you're going into this space alone. There's actually an immense ecosystem to support this. But right now, it's a communication tool for the donors and supporters of Furniture Bank that want to understand how we're using it beyond the annual campaign, and also for our staff, in that we see a lot of opportunities to expand the range of ways in which we do the work that we do in a way we would never be able to afford, be it dollars or skill set, doing it the traditional way. So it's evolving, taking some of the principles around a privacy or an accessibility or a donation policy that we all would have, and just making it visible that if somebody has that question, they can get those answers.
So, what is covered in the manifesto? It's. I guess what you're saying is it's a public statement about how you intend to use it and the ethics that you would follow as part of your use of AI in the work that you do. Am I getting that right?
Yep, no, and it's yes, and it's following some of the steps we take. How we disclose when we're using AI images and things like that. And we go back to it when, like, we're dabbling with AI video right now, which at the time we knew we were going to do video, but until we do it, like every time there's a cause and effect. But the intention is that nobody should be surprised if somebody's engaging with Furniture Bank and they see a photo that is AI generated, because we wanted to protect and not harm the clients we serve. We want to make sure that it's easily identifiable, that while the picture isn't real, but the reality is really the key message. In the case of video, the bigger project we're trying to accomplish this year is the nature of the families that we support cover the A to Z of languages we have on this planet. We never had the resources to translate our client access for all of those languages and put them on a website. And we can actually, using AI, again, in 1 hour, you and I could create 100 different languages, video, speaking in native tongue, with the written equivalent explaining how to access furniture bank services. So we want the manifesto as we evolved, we always go back to it to improve it, to see if there are new standards that should be added to it. But it's more for us internally at this point because we're not getting a lot of inquiries, or we've done a perfect job, which can't be the case, that the manifesto asks all those questions.
So within the manifesto, you do talk about a human-centered approach to AI use. Can you elaborate on that and what it looks like in practice?
Yeah, and this is going back to hashtag AI for good versus AI for bad. There are going to be lots of companies and maybe nonprofits that use AI to eliminate labor costs. That is not why we are using AI. So we have it human-centered, both for the staff that are part of the mission of Furniture Bank, but also the client families and the agencies that we work with. So AI we're using as an assistive tool that's trying to empower and augment the team. We're not interested in replacing humans, their hearts or their minds, in doing the work that we do. And we want to be very upfront about that because that is going to happen in this sector. And part of having it public is it's public. And if there's those disclosures, if you don't disclose, then you aren't setting a line in the sand on what you stand for. But it goes into how do we do ethical visualization? There's a term poverty porn that's out there. The whole sector does it in one way or the other. This is a way, albeit it's a fine line, but it does it in a way that the families that we are essentially photoing, we're not asking them to be harmed in the process. And we're only using the stories that they've submitted to describe. So it's sort of a participatory. So we want to be very clear about that. We want to maintain that for all of our staff, they understand the expectation is the way we use it is we will continue to be as transparent as we can be about how we use it as the tools and systems become available, because this is an ever-changing situation or opportunity, I shouldn't say situation, to make social purpose organizations more impactful.
You've raised a good point, and one that I wanted to explore with you because this idea of poverty porn and the capacity to be able to create images that may never have existed, showing impact that may never have been delivered. I mean, you can see the ethical kind of potential for, bad actors taking advantage of these tools. And I suppose that's the key aspect of why you need that transparency. I wonder if you could kind of dig into that a bit.
No, you're 100% right. It is generative images, like all of us, not us in the SPO, every single man, woman, and child on this planet today cannot assume the video, the picture, or the word that they're seeing or reading necessarily came directly from a single person. Videos can be fabricated, photos can be fabricated, words can be fabricated. I think we're heading into a period that that we have to make sure as organizations we put our humanity out front in front of these things, and that's new, that's different. For us, we struggle with, like, we could generate it because it's very easy. So we're trying to create a mechanism that we can essentially socially verify or validate that this is linked to this story, who's this anonymized person. But it's back to building the trust with your supporters, be it the financial donor, the furniture donor, your business partners, that you are always going back and validating in the same way we do social impact measurement. Whole other topic for another day. That credibility, that transparency same question for that sector. And I think it's new ground. As a father, I've seen how dangerous AI can be when used for the wrong purposes. But that's not, the one thing I love about being in the sector. I don't get up every day to do bad. I get up every day to end a type of poverty that's solvable. So if you have organizations that you trust and the material you're producing, you're doing so in a transparent way, I don't see it as a risk for the organization. It's when they are not being transparent, they are using AI, they're not transparent on how they're using it, it can create doubt for those supporters. And that's where charities are going to get into trouble.
Right. If you can't, it really goes to that transparency and the trust that you develop with your donors and your volunteers and public at large. In a time when many nonprofit organizations really struggle to innovate with new technology, either because of capacity or infrastructure issues or demographics or just or they're just too busy, trying to deliver on their mission. What characteristics of your organization do you think allowed you to quickly start experimenting with this amazing new technology? I mean, obviously, you're of a certain mindset, so we accept that, Dan, that really helps.
Well, I'm going to find two. I have a certain upbringing where when I had red hair, I got a computer when I was a kid. So that's my upbringing. But you comment on mindset, and I think that's really fundamental, is having a growth mindset or a digital mindset, that there are tools out there that can make your charity or nonprofit better. And if you have that mindset and curiosity, this is the best time of your life, because previous technologies over my professional career have always been immensely time consuming. You now have a tool right now on your mobile phone, on your computer, that is effectively free. And if you want the premium version, is $20 a month. There aren't cheaper technologies out there that can essentially function as an assistant for me. I use it to ideate, that I can teach it. Millions of pounds of furniture get thrown out. Millions of people are sleeping on the floor. How can we connect these themes? So it's not, anybody can do it. Everybody can pull out their phone right now, and I actually get email quite a bit of, how do I start? I actually have a canned email of, download this, use this. These are all free. And we had a summer student who had the same question, so we gave them a challenge. I'll send this link to you as well. Every charity, whoever writes a grant, always gets asked, what is a furniture bank? Or what is a insert charity name? And in our case, there are 4 questions that we often get asked. What is furniture bank? What is furniture poverty? What is furniture waste? And how might furniture waste through a furniture bank help end furniture poverty? Every grant application asks it. So we gave the summer student, why don't you go test all of these different models? So they went in 1 hour only. They went to all of these AI models that have been trained to understand the world. And they came back with the answers of what they thought a furniture bank was, or what furniture waste was, or furniture poverty, etc. And we created a blog. So free, instant. So I use the term superpowers because we all watch Marvel or DC. AI is a superpower for those who want to use it. So we started small. Back to your question, what did we do? Start small. Don't try and embed AI in your case management. No. What is the problem that you would love to solve that's small, and tinker? Share your successes. with your team, because when your team watching, for me to show, here's something that I did, what do you think you could do? And then they realize this is a technology that is not going to bite them. It's not going to yell at them. In fact, it's quite supportive. If it needs more information, they'll ask you. It's kind of like chatting on your mobile phone. And you have to, as you know, executive directors and CEOs of charities, you're also kind of the head of digital as well. So if you don't think digital is important, it's never going to happen in your organization. But for me, it's been really important to create an umbrella that protects my team, to let them experiment in ways that try and break the cow paths that we all have as charities. And what I mean by cow paths is we have all sorts of ways of that's the way we've always done it. And if that's working perfectly, don't break it. But 9 times out of 10, that's the way we've always done it is oftentimes an opportunity to do things better, faster, cheaper, reach more families, build a national network that were never considered possible in previous times. So a lot of it is shifting the mindset of everybody around you from being afraid of AI to seeing it as an amplifier, or giving you superpowers in the role that you have. Look for tiny little places that AI might be able to augment, make better. And try and create little experiments that you could share. Because once you have the confidence, then people get together and maybe we can do that. And that's where we're coming back to the manifesto. However you design your own, I just like the word manifesto. People want to read it. It gives you a mechanism to come back together to say, are we still on? Is this aligned with what we're doing? And how might we improve it, or how might we refine what we're doing? And it's just do it again and do it again. We see some very big AI projects that are back to those large, complicated, complex, need to hire experts. But I think at this stage in the AI in our sector, it's about just getting comfortable, because it's in the tools we use, it's in the society we live in, and it's moving faster than anything else around us, faster than I saw the internet go. And I worry that since business is moving fast, government's not going to. We're going to be waking up in a world where businesses defined how AI is. Businesses defined what AI models will look like. They will give tokenism support to nonprofits and all of the associated groups that need to create it, rather than our sector demanding a place at training these models to make sure that it builds back to those AI risks that we talked about earlier. But it starts within each and every nonprofit and charity, just starting to get comfortable with what it is and what it isn't within your own organization.
So Dan, you've talked about how you're using AI for your external communication and telling the stories of, the lives that you've impacted. What other uses are you exploring internally? What are you with? Do you have plans?
No, yeah. So some certain things like call centers. We have an amazing group of people who are engaging donors around our social enterprise. They work from 8 until 5 every day, Monday through Friday, and then they go home. There's a tool we're experimenting with where we can teach it, back to training, teach it how does furniture bank, furniture removal, social enterprise work. And Mary could call at 6:10 p.m. and you could actually have an honest to goodness conversation with a furniture bank bot. It would self-identify, but it would allow you to have a conversation and guide you through whether you would like us to give you a follow-up call Monday morning. For our staff, in their email they have, Mary has answered these questions. Here are her answers. And she would like to speak to you at 9:10. So that's just one example. The other I gave you about is translation and leveraging video. We're seeing a huge, in addition to the housing crisis, pushing budgets out of people's hands, and furniture poverty is a problem. increasing across the country. We're also seeing refugee and newcomers. I've never seen so many hit our social media sites directly trying to get access, specifically Ukrainians that have come. We were going to create a all in Ukrainian language how to access Furniture Bank. There are opportunities around the one that I'm keen to tackle over my holiday later in the summer is AI is very good at reading PDFs. So I have all of these academic PDFs that I've had for years. And like we all agree, sleep is critically important. If you can't sleep, you fail. So there's all these little vignettes, these little points that are in academic journals that the algebra of no furniture waste, everybody gets a furnished home equals a successful Canada it's a simple algebra, but I can use AI to actually take all of these academic journals, including the environmental ones and the ESG ones, and tease out the data points linked and pointed to the references to help me assemble my opus, which explains, of course, you shouldn't destroy furniture. Of course, you should give it to reuse organizations. And of course, housing first, furniture second, homes third. And I can do it as an academic and have all those references. These are all things that in the past would never have imagined be possible, but now are actually possible in a day or an hour. And I think that's the my wish for anybody getting to this point in the podcast is start experimenting, see how your organization can get superpowers, and more importantly, see how your teams can get superpowers. Because watching how our team is using Canva a little differently, or if you use Salesforce, there's all of these extra superpowers that are coming to the tools you have, and you get to unleash the creativity and passion of all of your staff because they don't need to do certain things anymore. So it's going to be scary times, but also very exciting times for your staff. And a decent workplace is not just two words. It's actually critical for successful nonprofits in this time.
Well, let's wrap up by looking, of course, to the future, but also the big picture. What opportunities do you think exist for organizations in the nonprofit sector who are able to embrace AI? What do you see as possible?
Oh, geez. So in terms of sector-wide, there are already AI-based fundraising companies coming up. So whether you do it yourself, there's new products that are coming out. There's AI-based, granting tools. AI is going to revolutionize. It's HR, it's customer service. It's really, I could walk through every department within every organization could see, not necessarily should, could see those functions transformed by AI, be it making things faster, more concise, less error prone, creating more time and capacity, which I think is really the thing I'm personally seeing out of my time with it. It frees up time to do the higher value activities. For Furniture Bank, trying to create a matching system where company A has extra sofas, community B needs sofas. There's a matching algorithm that over time we can train, making sure these goods get moved around. So you can take it, and it goes back to where we started, which is what are the problems that as an organization you would love or wish, I use the word wish, to solve, assuming a magical funder came and gave you all the money you thought you needed. Because that's usually what I hear when I'm in this space. Oh, if only we would get more funding. Well, flip it around. Pretend you had it in rank order. What do you want it to do? And AI can help you do it. It won't do it all, but it will free up resources. It will save you. It'll let you do things that you would never have the funds to do ordinarily. It will really empower your staff to do more than just their job, because they have an outlet to be creative and generative and get more involved in what the work your organization has. But if you go, anybody wants to see what it could do, go to McKinsey, go to Boston Consulting Group. They have their white papers on how it's going to transform the business world. And while as a sector, we tend not to want to look at the private sector, much of what we do is a business. We have HR departments, they have HR departments. Customer service, the functions have a lot of similarities. So if you want to see where, it's everything, every function in every organization, in every country. This is another important piece. Unlike most technology that takes years to get to different countries, it's in every country right this moment. So you get to reimagine what your own social impact organization wants to be. And then you decide how fast you want to get there leveraging AI. I've got another 10 years at Furniture Bank at least. I want to end furniture poverty across this country, and we're going to use our sort of digital platform and help. And somewhere in there, AI is going to help us. I don't have the what quite yet, but AI can do the same for every organization in Canada.
Well, Dan, as always, it's such a pleasure speaking with you. Your embrace and enthusiasm around innovation and technology in order to supplement the important work that you do at Furniture Bank and actually the nonprofit sector at large is really inspiring and really is useful stories that so many in our audience of professionals from the nonprofit sector can learn from. And I'm sure that they'll benefit from your insights and your early adoption from AI, just listening to some of your experiences with it. So thanks for joining us on CharityVillage Connects.
Thank you. And I'll share with you some of the examples. And if people have further questions, I'd be happy to help the new AI converts.
And we appreciate that. Thank you.
My pleasure.